Well, we're ready to go. I don't know, and Dr. Marzak, I don't know whether you heard me. I'm going to let anybody that has any specific questions or anything,
Yes, ma'am.
comments before, and we'll let them come up to the microphone just quickly and tell us if there's anything you want us to share with you. Mostly principals here. None? Then no? Okay. Then
Madam Chair, were you talking to me?
I was, but
Oh, sorry about that. I thought you were looking in the audience. Yeah, I do have a report from the State Department of Education conference today.
okay.
I had a chance to sit in on new Commissioner Swin's accountability model. One of the things that she addressed tonight is the ACT. She said they are looking at the ACT as an alternative measure, especially for high school. But they said the problem is that the ACT does not measure growth at the teacher level. It measures growth at the student level, but not the teacher level. So they are currently exploring with the ACT how that could be possible. So they wanted to tell the group that at this time, the ACT is not approved in the state of Tennessee as an alternative measure, at least at the high school level, but just wanted to let us know that they are currently working on it. The state is also developing over the coming years a couple of different things that they're wanting to implement. One of them is interim assessments that they want to offer from the state level. And this kind of goes back to the TSBA conference that we had this past Thursday, where they were taking our clicker responses on item banks and should the Department of Ed help local school districts with regards to some of these costs and funds. So they're looking over the next coming years to release interim assessments. These will have former test items on them, so teachers can at least see the rigor of the state tests and what is expected of students. They're also looking at offering a formative assessment bank that's developed at the state level, again, with the rigorous questions developed in line with assessed item areas that they would release to districts that teachers could use. They're also looking at the possibility of building an item bank. So an item bank means that questions that would be aligned to the rigor of assessed standards on tests that teachers could automatically pull down, and then they could add to a formative assessment. The commissioner also released to us today that they are looking at an innovative assessment pilot. They were talking about what's happening at numerous states around the country, such as Kentucky, Nebraska, Louisiana. However, she released to us tonight that they are going to take 1 year for feedback. They are going to start working on them in probably the 21-22 year, but it could be up to 5 years before we see a change in the current accountability and assessment model that we have in the state of Tennessee.
Well, that wasn't what you were expecting, was it?
No, ma'am. We were expecting, especially with the state board meeting that was happening this past Friday, we were expecting things that would be happening a little bit quicker and sooner. But today, it does not appear that that's going to be the case in the state of Tennessee.
All right. Was there anything from today you wanted to report on the information we had about the appeals we've done?
Yes, ma'am. Yes. So had a meeting, was able to get together this afternoon and had a meeting with Mike Hardy and board members. If you will remember, I sent you an email about that. We submitted data to the State Board of Education that showed that we had close to 500 or so errors on our chronically absentee data, which meant we were not getting quality points in line with the accountability model that Dr. Woodard and I are going to go through tonight. Because we were missing those quality points due to data errors on the state side, we were missing moving into the satisfactory area with regards to our accountability. So according to Dr. Woodard's assessment and us looking at the data and going over it multiple times, we should be classified this year as a satisfactory district, not a district in need of improvement, when we add those quality points back into our accountability profile. Mr. Hardy stated to me that he was going to run that data past the team. He was going to have his assessment team take a look at it and basically verify the cleanup of the data that we did, and then he was going to work to help us to see what determination our district should, could, or might have been.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, ma'am.
I know you're ready to go. Is there any way these can come up on our screens if it's here? Can we not? We can't? Okay, that's fine. No, he said he couldn't. You're on land. While you're doing that, let me just say that, when when I got to have some time with Dr. Woodard and, Dr. Marzak prior to the scores coming out, as board chair, you can do that before they're, unencumbered, and I felt like it was essential for this board to have that kind of experience, discussion, have that opportunity to hear the presentation, to be able to ask questions, to understand, and then also would have the opportunity to see where we go from here. So that's the reason for this, that we put this off to be in one session rather than our work session. So, okay, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair Kinzer, members of the board. Good evening. I want to take a little time tonight to discuss our data. I want to be frank with you. I'm coming out tonight with a little bit of a chip on my shoulder, okay? I'll just be flat out honest with you. So I'm coming out with a little bit of passion and fire you probably hadn't seen out of me in a while, but got a little bit of a chip on my shoulder. I've grown frustrated with some of the negativity that I'm hearing about our scores. We did extremely well this year. We made a lot of progress this year, and I'm real pleased about the progress that we made. And I'm sick and tired of hearing about the negative aspects of what we didn't do well over the things that we did right. And so I think our principals, our students, and our teachers deserve to hear the attaboy from you all every now and then, and from everyone in this community about the things that we're doing well. Tonight we're going to discuss everything. We're going to look at what we did well, the areas where we need to improve, and we're going to talk about what we're going to do to make sure that we secure a better and brighter future for students in Maury County Public Schools. But I just had to get that off my chest and say that tonight, okay? Just had to let that get off my chest, okay? So let me dive in. This is an overview of what we're going to talk about tonight, and I know that time is of the essence because it's already 8 o'clock, okay? First things first, I'm going to give you an understanding of the Tennessee Accountability Model. We'll talk about performance gaps and subgroups. Item 2 will be an overview of the state rankings. Where are we now? Item 3, we'll look at where we're under construction. Where do we need to improve as a district in Maury County Public Schools? Item 4 is, what are we doing well? What are the areas where we're doing real well with performance? Item 5 will be school performance indexes. I'll give you a chance to discuss and look at what the academic performance indexes for our schools will look like. And then, of course, we have item 6, barriers and challenges. And then we'll look at item 7, moving forward. Okay, how do we move forward? Where are we going as a district? I think these are the things that you want to know as board members, all right? So we'll dive right in, okay? First things first, what does the state measure for districts? And here's what they measure. They measure the success rate in grades 3-5. They measure the success rate in grades 6-8, the success rate in grades 9-12, and chronic absenteeism. They also measure the graduation rate. And in the graduation rate, they measure a formula called rated graduate. And the last one, of course, is English language proficiency assessment. This is the percentage of kids who take the ELPA exam, kids who do not speak English, those non-English speaking students who take an exam, they factor into our accountability as well, okay? So first I want to help you understand what a success rate is, okay? Every indicator that we get scored on as a district and by schools is on a 4-point scale. When we look at TBOS growth, it's 1 through 5. When we look at the other indicators for the success rate, it is 0 through 4, okay? A 0 would be in need of improvement, a 1 would be marginal, 2 would be satisfactory, 3 would be advancing, and of course 4 would be excelling or exemplary, okay? A success rate is a measure of the percentage, the number of kids that are on track or mastered in math, English, and also in our high school EOCs in math and our high school EOCs in ELA. So they combine all of our T and Ready results, and they combine all of our EOC results together, and then they divide that by the number of valid tests, okay? When we say valid tests, we're talking about kids who took an assessment here in Maury County Public Schools that had 120 days of academic instruction. So if you had a kid that moved here from Montana, and then he's only been here 60 days, that kid will take the test, but because they didn't have X amount of days of instructional time, that test would not count. That's what we're talking about, valid tests. So they take the test, all tested numbers, and then they sift it out and they divide it by your number of valid tests. So they divide these two formulas together and they give you a number, okay? In grades 3 through 5, our number was 29.5. The state gave us a target to meet of 32.4. We fell short of that target, okay? We were close, but we fell short of that target, okay? And that's in grades 3-5. They gave us a target of 24.2 to meet in grades 6 through 8, and we fell short of that target. And in grades 9 through 12, made some big improvement. We fell short of the target by less than 1% there. So big improvement in our high schools, but we did fall short of the target by about 1%, okay? So now I'll show you how the success rate will factor in. I'm gonna move from this podium and try this other mic, and I wanna go up to the screen and help you understand this, if that's okay. Test it, test it. It's a little bit loud. Can y'all hear me? Tell me, is this all right? Yeah. Okay. As you can see here, on our screen, as I mentioned before, you were given a number for every indicator. Let's start with 3 through 5 success rate. You can see success rate in grades 3 through 5, okay? Here's how this works. As a district, we must either meet our AMO, which is the target the state set for us, okay? Or we must be meeting what they call absolute performance, which means you're moving forward, okay? We did not meet the AMO. We missed the target in grades 3, 5, but we are making forward progress. So you get the higher score of the two, okay? So we had a 2 there, which is satisfactory, okay? The other indicator is what you call value added. There are 2 types of value added in this model. There's TBOS value added, and TBOS value added goes in success rate for grades 3, 5, 6, 8, 9, and 12. The other types of value add I'll explain in just a minute, okay? So what they do is they take the higher of the 2. Either you make the AMO pathway or you meet the absolute performance pathway. You get the higher of the 2. As you can see here, the absolute performance for Murray County Public Schools was higher than the AMO, so we get a 2, okay? Our TBOS value added here for 3, 5 was a 1, so we don't get any points there, okay? So you get points based on your TBOS value added. We did not earn any points, so we did not have enough growth to earn bonus points, okay? So what they do is they take 1 or 2 columns, whichever is higher between these 2, plus your value added column. They divide by 2, and then you get your overall scores in this final column, okay? They divide the overall column by 6, and then you get an overall number right here, which determines where you'll be as a district, okay? In grades 6 through 8, with our success rate, we were 1 and 1, okay? Neither was higher, so it wouldn't matter whether it was AMO or absolute performance. We are the 1 there, okay? 1 being a marginal. In 9 through 12, you can see that we were higher with the AMO. We were closer to the AMO target. We missed the target by 1%, so we get a satisfactory here. Remember, 2 in this model is satisfactory. So in 3, 5, satisfactory. In 9, 12, satisfactory. Okay, so you can see right here, here's a 2, right? So 2 plus the value add of 0 is a 2 divided by the 1, divided by 2 divided by 2 is 1, sorry, okay? Are y'all following along with me? So here's a 2. Plus the 0 is 2, divided by 2, and then we earn 1 point, okay? Next indicator is chronically out of school. This is something that all schools have been working on. These principals have heard me preach this I'm blue in the face and never blue in the face, but we talk about this quite a bit, okay? We earned a satisfactory for chronic absenteeism. This is an area where I really have some wrestling to do with the state, and I'll show you this in just a minute, but we were satisfactory, okay? Our target was 13.8%. We came in at about 15% chronic absenteeism, okay? When the file came back from the state, we looked at the file and we saw there were several errors. We have about roughly 13,000 students in our district. The file came back with 15,000 records, okay? And we found duplicates and we found errors, and so we sent it back to the state and said, hey, if you're gonna evaluate us, please make sure that we get the appropriate points that we deserve. And so we have submitted that as an appeal, and hopefully we'll know more about that appeal within a couple of weeks. But, so we did not get any points for value added with our chronic absenteeism. Here's the way this one will work. You receive points if you reduce the number of kids who are chronically absent significantly from the previous year. So if you make a significant reduction in the number of kids who are chronically absent, then you get bonus points. So of course you couldn't get any bonus points if you're going the other way. But we have to make sure the state has clean data, and that we're evaluating on clean data so that we're accurately reflected in this model, and that's why we put the appeal in, okay? So again, here's 2 plus 0, which is 2, divided by 2, which gives us a 1, okay? Here's our English language proficient. We came out with 2 and 2. Neither one is higher, so you get the higher of the 2, but it just boils down to we get a 2, plus the 1, got value-added points with our ELL students. Our ELL students are moving forward, are progressing and growing. So we have a total of 3 points divided by 2, that gives us 1.5. Graduation rate, okay? Our graduation rate is about 88.2%. It is a satisfactory rate. We can move up to the next level by being at 90 or above, so we earned a 2. You earn additional bonus points with graduation rate if your ready graduate column shows that you increased. They show that we went back by about 1.5%. So we've also put in an appeal for that also. Northfield Academy, that data was included in our ready graduate. If we deduct the Northfield Academy data out of our ready graduate, then it will bump us up significantly. I think it bumps us up to about 37%. And so I think that will put us at the upper levels. That will give us probably a 2 or a 3 in this category, which would be a total of 5 divided by 2 gives us maybe a 2.5, okay? So with this model, here's how this model works, okay? Our achievement determination was marginal. It said that marginally is district is improving, making some isolated improvement, if any. That's what it says, okay? So overall was a 1, okay? Here's why we rank in the bottom 5%. All of the districts in Tennessee are stacked against each other with this final number, okay? Our final number, when weighted against all the other districts, ranks us there in the bottom 5%. But again, we have a couple of metrics where we have not been accurately depicted, and that's what we're wrestling with the state about. So the higher this bottom number is when you rank, the closer you are, okay? As long as this number is 1.1 or higher, which you can see we're a tenth of a point away from being satisfactory, 1.1, you can be satisfactory. But you're not satisfactory if your overall number ranks you in the bottom 5, okay? So if other districts have 1.2, 1.3, then you fall out of this determination and you'll fall at a lesser determination. So regardless of what your final points are, everyone is going to be ranked. The whole state is going to be ranked against each other. There will always be a bottom 5%. There always will be, okay? The challenge that we face is, if there's always a bottom 5%, we're always chasing the state. As the state improves, we're trying to improve. So the state moves up a little bit, and we're trying to catch the state, okay? So we're always trying to catch the state and move ahead of them. I heard you loud and clear 3 years ago when you said that your number 1 priority was to meet or exceed the state average in every single area where we test. And these guys have been getting after it. These principals have been getting after it. So I'm gonna show you a couple more things, and then we'll move on. This is how we rank with the state. So you can see that in ELA 3, we lag behind the state in about 10% in ELA 3. We lag behind the state for about 7% in ELA 4, 10% in ELA 5, 11% in ELA 6, 10% in ELA 7, about 8% in ELA 8. A little bit of a lag there in ELA, about 9% in English 1, and then in English 2, we're a lot closer, about 6%, okay? But you can see these numbers don't look great for the state either, okay? The only area in the whole state where kids were above 40% or at 40% in the whole state is in English 2. So these numbers don't look great for the state of Tennessee, and we're not complacent. We're not proud of these numbers, but we feel like we're in the hunt. When we look at these numbers and when we look at where we are as a county, given the resources that we have, guys, we're in the hunt. I'm optimistic. We're in the hunt. I can't look at this chart and graph and say, oh my God, this is so terrible. We're so far behind. Given the resources that we have, the limitations that we have with our budget, you know, in English 2, we're sitting behind the state at 6%. When I think about what that looks like, that's only a few more kids, okay? If I take a sample size of 70 students over at Culleoka, I'm just going to use Culleoka. So I'm testing 70 students, and I need to make a 10% gain. That's just 7 more kids that have to be proficient. So in many cases, we just have to move a few more kids, and we can get there. And those are the kind of conversations that we've been having with principals. Those are conversations that we're having with leadership teams, with teachers, and we believe that we really can make it. Yes, we do lag, okay? I'll look at math now. The gap's a little wider in math, but we're going to get there, okay? You can see in math 3 about a 10% lag. In math 4, a little bit of a lag there. Closer, but still some lag there. Significant lag in math 5, big gap there. That's a transition year. Typically, research shows that when kids go from building to building, they have a decrease in student achievement. Also in grade 8, you can see that. As kids are going from building to building, significant drop, okay? Grade 5 and grade 8 were areas in our middle school we had just significant low performance there. We want to improve that low performance. And so we're having some conversations with middle school principals. In math 6, we lag by about 13%. In math 7, the lag is about 15%. Algebra 1, 15. Algebra 2, we starting to close the gap in Algebra 2. It's about a 7% lag there. And then, of course, with geometry, slight lag there, so about a 9% lag in geometry. So we're starting to close the gap. So I'm going to talk about subgroups for a little bit. One of the things that this model does is that this model will definitely penalize districts that do not move all children. So we have to move all children, okay? You can see that in our 3 through 5 success rate. If our success rate is 29.5, the success rate for African American children is about 17. 16 for economically disadvantaged, about 9.5 for our SPED students, and about 17 for our ELL students. And so the key is that how do we bridge this gap? We want to bridge these gaps and make sure that all of our students are moving closer to the all students average. And so we have some significant work to do with regard to our subgroups as well. In grades 6, 8, you can see the similar gaps. You can see that Black, Hispanic, Native American students lag behind all students by about 9%. Economically disadvantaged students or kids who are in poverty, some of our at-risk children are behind by about 11%. And then, of course, some of our SPED students are behind as well. English language learners are behind by about 11% as well. With high school, grades 9 through 12, we can see that our African American, Hispanic, and Native American students lag behind by about 11%. Economically disadvantaged, 12. SPED, 4.6. ELL, about 7.6. So we're under construction. We all work in progress, and we feel that we're rapidly making our way towards being better. So I took this quote from Schmidt, which says that the biggest room in the world is the room for improvement, and that's where we are. Here are the areas that we think we must improve the most. Okay, one, we know that Math 8 has been a challenge. Math 8 is very, very rigorous. 8th grade math is probably one of the toughest tests that we have amongst the T and Ready series. It is extremely rigorous, and our kids have struggled to master some of that content. It's extremely rigorous, and we're working on that. We're going to do some math collaboratives, pull 8th grade math teachers together, do some work around content readiness, and do some work around tasks, teaching math tasks in order to improve academic effectiveness in this area. Significant improvement is needed in the area of Algebra 1. We have had low performance there for quite some time, and we have to improve that. And we're doing some math collaboratives with our district data coach as well, and she's pulling the Algebra 1 teachers. And we're also doing some work around standards analysis to ensure that we're hitting the standards and teaching the standards at a level where kids can master the content. We need improvement in 3 through 8 ELA and also in our middle schools, and that's based on subgroup performance. We do have 5 schools that have been that we consider focus schools. Focus school means that you have one or more subgroups that would rank in the bottom 5%, just that subgroup. That means that that particular subgroup is not performing as well as other kids in your school, and when that particular subgroup in your school, it also means that particular group in your school is performing at or below where like a priority school will be performing, okay? It does not mean that the school is a priority school or that the school is a bad school. It just means that one group is dragging the performance down, one or more groups, and it means you have to improve performance for that, for those particular students. So, in those schools, I'm sure you've been notified, but those schools are Spring Hill Middle, Whitthorne Middle, Mount Pleasant Middle, and Whitthorne. I say Whitthorne twice. Whitthorne, Spring Hill, E.A. Cox, and Spring Hill Middle, sorry. And Highland Park also. Those are schools where we have to improve subgroup performance, okay? Those 4 schools, if you look at letter grades, their letter grade is a D, but one of those schools does have a C letter grade. So you can still be a focused school and then still have decent performance. This just means that you have a subgroup that the state has identified that they want you to improve. So middle school reform is something that we have been having serious conversation about. I pulled all middle school principals recently to my office, and we had a great collaborative. I'm not a fan of chewing people out and being real tough on them. I believe we have to coach people up, and I believe we find solutions together. And we got in the conference room, and we had some great conversations, and we worked together and looked at some solutions to what we can do to begin making reform in middle school. So I'm going to ask our middle school leaders to come up now and talk with you about some of the solutions that they are wanting to pose for how we reform our middle schools. Brother Drink Wine, you want to bring the crew up here? Shonda Sparrow, Drink Wine. Brother Penner, you want this?
Yeah, that'd be great.
And you want that clicker? Boom, right there.
This is wonderful. Thank you, and thank you to the board, and it is a pleasure for us as middle school principals to present. Is that good? Okay. blowing everybody away tonight. So we really want to present, we want to be candid with our board. We also want to be very open and honest, and also we want to share a plan as it pertains to the work that we're going to be really undergoing as middle school principals. I'm excited about it. I'm excited about the work. We are calling this our Maury County Public School Middle School Experience. Now, why? Let's be very clear about the why. It's because I believe that we have a middle school crisis in Maury County Public Schools. It is not a secret that we are underperforming in middle schools across the district. And all middle school principals are aware of it. We own it, and we want to make sure that we are providing an exemplary experience for all middle school students and all middle school families. We have been designated as TSI or ATSI schools at the middle school tier. In addition, what I would like to say is it's very important that as we recognize that fact, that we present a case to recruit and retain teachers of high capacity who can enter into our middle schools and provide an exemplary experience for all students. And why? Because as the second to last bullet point right there, all families deserve an equitable experience in the middle school. So if we have students who go to Spring Hill Middle School, or maybe we have students who go to Whitthorne, or Mount Pleasant Middle, or Battle Creek Middle, or E.A. Cox Middle, all middle schools across the district are providing the very best education possible for any student. It doesn't matter the middle school. And last but not least, we want to bridge the transition and alignment gap between elementary to middle and middle to high school. As Dr. Woodard has already touched on tonight, that when you have those different transitions, you start to see a decrease, you start to see a gap. We want to bridge that gap. Another reason why, because we have SMART goals currently. We have SMART goals in the district as it pertains to math, that specific subject area. The district SMART goal in 5th grade math is to increase proficiency from 28.6% to 42%. And that would be a 13.4% gain. And then in 6th through 8th grade math, it would be a 12.3% gain from 14.7 to 27%. So why do I mention that? Because that is what's currently the goal, currently right now. And so as middle school principals, we understand that goal. We understand that we have to have solidarity, work together to create a plan. And I'm really excited for what you are about to hear from some of our school leaders at the middle school tier as it specifically pertains to not just math, but also reading and ELA. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Penner, our esteemed principal at Battle Creek Middle School, and he's going to share as it pertains to ELA.
And so in ELA, we have some similar kinds of SMART goal components where our proficiency before has been 26.9, and we want to move that to 39%. Now, when it says 12% gain, there are a couple things to kind of note about this. First of all, that's out of 100, right? But what we're really talking about is 50% more kids being proficient. So we know these are what I'd call big, hairy, audacious goals, right? But at the same time, we think they're achievable. We also don't think that they're, to us, that's kind of the floor, because that still means that we're only talking about 39% being proficient, right? So we know that this is a step in the direction, and our intent is to achieve this goal this year. So this is a very, it's an achievable but a stretch goal as well. And the same thing for 6th through 8th grade ELA, that 15.5% gain to go from 22.5 to 38. It's actually 75% of an increase from what it was, right? So that's a huge number. We're talking about 3/4 more kids than what we had before being proficient. But there are some specific ways that we believe this is going to happen, and so we're going to get into that next. Are you next?
Win. Yes, this is me. This school year, some of us have already been doing this maybe the past school year. I'm about to get a little closer, I can read it. Increased achievement fifth through eighth grade and SMART goals, and we set those. We've had conferences with our leaders starting this week when we put these goals together, and we'll share those with our teachers. We post those on the walls. We calculate them, like he said, where it goes to not only a percentage, but a number of kids that we need to move depending on the number of kids in our building. Maybe it's 30 to 40 or 50 kids that we got to move up to the next level. Common assessments, and I know with Thorne, we've been working hard on our PLC process and getting these common assessments that are rigorous enough so that we kind of win the fight before we fight the fight. So we don't want to be surprised at the end. If we have these common assessments weekly and monthly and quarterly, then at the end of the year, we should have a pretty good idea of what we're going to do on the test. Improved attendance and chronic absenteeism, we've talked about that. It is a challenge. We have intervention with our tiered truancy support. I know our family resource individuals at our school work and call, and we do call-outs. I know we post hours, and we compare our student attendance to our teacher attendance sometimes, make a little competition there. That's something that we struggle with and across the district. I know climate and culture, that's kind of the foundation. I know a lot of our middle school principals are in their first or second year, and getting the climate and culture where it needs to be and have a learning environment where you can get the most bang for your buck as you work through your standards. Increasing teachers' capacity. One of the things that I know that we've been doing at the middle school level is increase walkthroughs with our literacy coaches, our math coaches, the people from the core office to make sure that the standards that we are teaching are rigorous enough. So again, it goes back to doing those common assessments and making sure we're in there doing the right things and working as smart as we can. In addition, all middle schools in Marion County will begin the middle school experience next year to focus on 5th and 8th grade. Tracy.
I know. Good evening. So the middle school experience, it doesn't matter if I'm going to Spring Hill or Mount Pleasant or Battle Creek or Whitthorne or Cox Middle School. Our 5th grade students, we see that there's a transitional period where they struggle and they're not performing like they need to, as we've discussed. So with the middle school experience, the high 5 for 5th grade is 5 areas of focus. We're already doing a lot of these, but some of our focus is going to be specifically on the last one, on number 5, so we'll talk about that last. But the first thing is to do an induction for our 5th graders. This is going to be in the springtime, and we all do it, but we're going to collaborate more to make sure that the 5th graders, regardless of where you're going, are receiving that same induction to where they know, how do I walk in the halls? How do I work my locker? How do I handle 5 teachers now when I'm used to just maybe having 1 or 2? So helping them make that transition into middle school to be successful and how that will look like collaboratively for us in developing that. Also a parent-student orientation, letting the parents be a partner with us in the education of their child. A lot of times when they come to middle school, the first thing they'll say is communication shuts down. Well, we want to build that back up to make sure that we are communicating at the middle school level with the students and the parents about what's going on at school and the expectations of their students. Student-driven SMART goals. We have SMART goals that we're trying to attain. Our students are writing SMART goals they need to be attaining based on the data that's specific to them. So that's a focus for us. Also, that data that they're collecting will become part of their communication with their families to where at any point in time, if a parent needs a conference, their student can lead that conference because they're going to know the specific data, the goals that they're setting for themselves. And then finally, an initiative that we will have starting next year is our Let's Get Literacy. We know that foundationally, literacy is what's going to help move our scores in the right direction, helping our students read on grade level. So as a part of that, developing some community partnerships, we will need 36 of them. Our servant leaders will become servant readers, and they will come into our classrooms once a month. They will be dressed in our Let's Get Literacy t-shirts. They will have books that are based on rigorous content, so that text complexity is there, that they can, the instructional shifts with ELA, to where they can have questions that the children must cite evidence, as well as we're building that knowledge to where they can connect to prior learning and then connect it to future learning as well. And then, of course, using that same book, using the same style of questions, letting our students see community readers come in and support their learning. So that's our addressing the high five for making that transition from 4th grade into 5th grade.
So to finish it off, for our 8th grade, the grade 8, just after we have set those foundational skills for our 5th through 7th grade, this is the experience and our focus for 8th grade. And you know 8th grade is in preparation for high school. So I know that we talk about scores and get our students to grow, but our ultimate goal for middle school is just to make sure that our students are ready for high school. And I think when Dr. Woodard continues to talk about some of the gains that we have made as far as our episodes in ACT, you'll see that it kind of started here in the 8th grade. So for 8th grade, one of the focuses for all MCPS 8th grade students will have access to high school credit courses, and I think we've all done a good job about starting that. I know that every school has started. We do have Algebra 1, which a student is able to earn a high school credit. I think we've also implemented some other courses, our CTE courses that have been implemented in the middle school. So our kids will not, you know, they have to get ready for high school, but one of the focus they can take off of them, they have to have a cluster or a focus when they go to high school. They're going to get that exposure in the middle school level, so that is one thing that can help them get acclimated quicker to the high school because they have other things they have to do. Our MCPS 8th grade students will participate in college and career exploration, and this starts in the 5th grade. Every student in the middle school is exposed to ACT. So that's the ultimate test to get them ready for college. So we started in the 5th grade that they're going to be exposed to ACT vocabulary. All of our students, most of our students right now are on the collegefortn.grad or either Learning Blade. So they are having ACT vocabulary exposure. They get to explore different careers, colleges, and things of that sort. All MCPS 8th grade students will participate in an 8th grade experience. So at the end, a culmination project, they can either go on a local trip linked to a college, out-of-town trip, or a capstone project. And I think most of us have developed those trips and things to get our students prepared. So our colleagues right here, our middle school colleagues, middle school principals, have been working really, really hard. We are kind of in a unique situation in the middle school level. We're transitioning from elementary to middle school and then get our kids prepared to get to high school. So they're kind of in a quadrant here. So we have been working really hard, and I know that maybe sometimes our scores don't reflect it, but we have been doing a great job getting our kids prepared, and I think our high school principals can attest to our kids being ready when they go to the high school. Yeah, right.
All right, let's have a hand for our middle school principals. Great job, great job.
So, we talked about the areas where we need to improve, things that we need to work on, and now let's talk about what we did well. That's a big part of this equation. Maury County Public Schools demonstrated strong improvement in course assessments in 4 out of 5 tested accountability areas in grades 9 through 12. Okay, there are 5 areas that counted this year. The U.S. history did not count in accountability this year. Algebra 2, Geometry, English 1, and English 2 were areas where we did extremely well. All schools in grades 9 through 12 demonstrated improved performance in English 1. All schools in grades 9 through 12 demonstrated improved performance in English 2. All schools in grades 9 through 12 demonstrated improved performance in Geometry. District performance in Algebra 2 demonstrated some slight improvement as well. District achievement in mathematics in grades 3 through 5 demonstrated some improvement in performance, and district achievement in mathematics grades 6 through 8 indicated that we had some improvement in performance as well. District performance in social studies improved in 2 out of 3 tested grade levels. We improved in grades 6 and 7, and did we not do as well in 8th grade social studies this year. District overall performance in ELA grades 3 through 11 improved from 23.1 to 25.2 in 2019, which consisted of all of those English areas from ELA 3 all the way to English 2. District overall performance in math in grades 3 through 11 improved from 19.7 to 23.2 in 2019, which consisted of math 3 all the way up to algebra 2. 16 of our 20 schools improved their overall academic performance index last year, and 16 of our 20 schools are listed as satisfactory or above based upon a Tennessee Department of Education letter grade scale, and we also had 2 reward schools. So now we're looking at the academic performance indexes, and I want to take a minute to dive in here. The academic performance index is a complicated web. I showed you some of the scoring for that earlier with success rate. The tricky part of this is that 60% of the model weights all students, and then the other part of your score is 40% for your subgroups. So it's a 60-40 split that makes up the number that you get in the box. They measure achievement, they measure growth, chronic absenteeism, they measure your ELL if you have that population, they measure your ready graduate if you're a high school, and your grad rate. And then, of course, they give you a final average. As you can see in this example, the final averages are located in the light blue column over to the right, okay? You can see the comparisons between 2017-18, and the light blue indicates 2019, okay? Overall, when we apply the letter grades to all of our schools, we had 4 schools that were D's. Everyone else was an A, B, or C. And so, again, much improved from the previous year. And again, 16 of your 20 schools sit at a C or higher. And again, 2 reward schools. To be a reward school, you must have an academic performance index of a 3.1 out of a possible 4. So for board members, for those of you guys who don't know how this works, it's almost like think of it like an academic GPA. If you had a 4.0, so if you had a 3.1 or higher, you get an A, and that gives you reward status. You can see that many of our schools were within just a couple of points. Okay, you can look at Baker. Baker had a 2.5. Baker needed 0.6 of a point to be a reward school. Okay, Hampshire needed 0.3 of a point to be a reward school. Spring Hill Elementary made a big jump from a 1.2 to a 2.8. They needed 0.3 of a point to be a reward school. Okay, Marvin Wright Elementary needed 0.5 a point to be a reward school. So I can go on and on about how many schools were there. J.E. Woody, which is Mount Pleasant Elementary School, needed 0.4 of a point to repeat as a reward school. So these numbers indicate that we're moving in the right direction, that good things are happening. Proud of Culleoka. I can't leave Culleoka out. Culleoka went from what would have been a D to a B. So look at that, 2.5. They needed 0.6 of a point to be a reward school. So we're seeing some really good progress. With a little more work, with just a little more, if we move a few more kids at each school, then we can have a really big celebration. And for that reason, I say that we made great improvement. Yeah, we can focus on the things that we didn't do right, but I haven't heard enough celebration on the things that we did well yet. And that's what has been concerning for me. But nevertheless, these are what the letter grades look like. This year, the letter grades have not been public. The state has not decided to make it public yet. I'm just showing you what it would have looked like if they made it public. They pulled the plug on this. I think the announcement was somewhere around August 11th. But this is what you can expect next year. These will be public. For whatever reason, this is the 3rd year in a row where the state has pulled the letter grades. And what I mean by pull those is that they have not attached those to the state report card. Okay, but once they do that next year, then they will be public, and this will be posted in the paper. And our principals are aware that you can't hide your performance. There's no way to hide. This is what the public will see. And so we're showing the public now who we are right now. We don't have anything to hide. We work extremely hard, and we don't have anything to hide. Okay. We have 16 schools out of our 20 that are C or above. 4 schools are D. We got some work to do. We have no F schools in Murray County, and we have no priority schools in Murray County. The only school that was listed as a priority school was Northfield at one time, and that designation has been removed by the State Department. Northfield High School has been reclassified as an adult high school. It is not a priority school. We have no priority schools in Murray County. We have no F schools in this county. 4 schools with a D. Everyone else is C or better. So critics will say we didn't make enough progress. Critics will say, oh, it's not good enough. But based upon what we have and the resources we have, I'd say it's hard to argue with that kind of progress based upon what we have. So let's talk about barriers and challenges, okay? We all know the obvious. Access to curriculum resources has been a challenge for us. We know that, okay? I don't want to sound like Captain Obvious up here, but that's the truth, okay? These were some of the resources that have been cut. We cut Dreambox. We cut Myon. We cut 10 Marks. We cut IO, Improving Outcomes. We cut Power School Assessment. We cut the RTI Interventionist. We cut Discovery Ed Training. We cut Discovery Ed Textbooks. We cut Next Lesson, and we cut textbooks. Okay? All those academic resource cuts and yet I still give you 16 of 20 schools who are performing at a C or better this academic year, given all these cuts, okay? We needed Dreambox in our elementary schools to help with math, to supplement math. We needed Bion to supplement reading. We needed 10 marks in our high schools to supplement the high school math. We needed IO to act as our data dashboard. We needed Power School Assessment to help us have a common assessment builder, okay? If we have a common assessment builder, then we can test our kids before they take the actual test and get an idea of where they're missing the mark before they take it. Right now, we take the test blind with no common assessment builder, okay? We need the RTI interventionists in our schools to help bridge the gap for kids who need extra time on task. We need Discovery Ed training for our teachers. We need Discovery Ed textbooks and what they provide, okay? I mean, that, and I mean, textbooks, I can go all day about, so if funding weren't an issue, what would we need? Okay, if funding were not an issue, okay? We would love to have the intervention component for Ready Math. That would be about $204,000. We'd like to have that intervention component. I don't know if we'll get it this year, but maybe next year we can prioritize that in the budget, and I'd love to bring that to you next year again. Foreign language text. We'd like to spend about $80,000 a year over the next couple of years to get our foreign language books up to speed. We need new Spanish, Latin, French books for our teachers. They've not had books in a while. We need to get them newer books. We'd love to have more ELA resources for the fall. This is going to be the 2020 adoption year, so ELA is going to have an adoption year this year. And board members, I'm just saying up front, we need to prioritize, I think, about $1.2 million for ELA curriculum, okay? One of the challenges that we've had is that we have not bought into some of the textbook adoptions, so we're behind on many of our adoptions. I'm just being honest with you. I'm not laying blame tonight or trying to be ugly tonight. I'm just being honest. We're behind on many of our adoptions. There have been 2 math cycles. We just had the social studies adoption last year. There was a science one before that, and this year's ELA, and I know we cannot afford to miss the ELA adoption. We've got to adopt the text and choose curriculum resources in ELA and then go ahead and purchase those. It's going to be a must. I think we have to prioritize that and, of course, the teacher raises in the budget for next year. But those are 2 things we have to prioritize. And that's in addition to supporting what we're already doing with the Ready Math. Ready Math is going pretty well, but we have to keep that going as well. So those are going to be costs that we need to think about going into next year. Advanced placement, we have more kids who are taking advanced placement, and those books are, college costs. They cost a lot. And so I'd like to spend about $60,000 a year to make sure that we have the appropriate number of advanced placement books for our schools, so that every kid at least can get a book and not Class X. I mean, we as we expand, this will just help us in the future. We would love to have an assessment builder and an item bank that has rigorous questions so that we can design some tests that we send out to schools, and then we issue those tests. My first year in this position, we did, I think we did 1 test like this in February where we tested the whole district just to get a feel for where we were. But we love to do that twice a year, get a feel for where we are before we take the test. Like I said earlier, we kind of take the test blind. So we'd love to have an assessment builder that we have as a district where we provide something like this that we get out. That item bank will cost somewhere around $80,000 or so. The RTI interventionist, we lost that. Obviously, that's a whopping cost, but we really felt like that would make up ground with kids who need additional time on task and some small group kind of support. We'd love to have the RTI interventionist back, but that was a whopping cost. That's almost $1 million. That's $800,000, $838,000. And so if money were not an issue, these are the kind of things that we would probably ask for, things that we would want to have, but we realize that we have some budget constraints. But given our budget constraints, you've never heard us complain. We make do with what we have. Textbook line is about $300,000. Not one day have you ever heard me complain. We ask every year for more. We take what you give us, and we do the best we can. And so we're humble, we work hard, and we're hungry to achieve. If you ask me about our second challenge, I will be very frank with you and very candid. We have to improve teacher effectiveness as well. I looked at a study from Cincinnati Public Schools, and they looked at what classroom observations can explain. So if a kid has an effective top quartile teacher, they can move about 6.96 points in reading and about 6.43 percentile points in mathematics. And the converse to that is if a kid has a lower quartile scoring teacher, they don't move as much. You can see about a 3.28 percentile point gain and a 2.45 percentile point gain for teachers who are not as effective. And so this is what our teachers look like as far as scoring in the upper tiers. Obviously, you want a slew of level 5 teachers. We have some great teachers who've done dynamic work, but, the number of level 5 teachers this past year, we had about 33 that were level 5s out of the whole district. 25 level 4s, 147 level 3s, 61 2s, 79 teachers who were scoring at the level 1, okay? And again, if you look at what this looks like, this is our teacher analysis of teaching effectiveness. I put this graph together. About 16.2% of our teachers are scoring based on last year at about the 4 or 5 level, which is where you want them. You want teachers in the 3, 4, 5 kind of lane, okay? And then you can see that we have about 40% that are here, okay, in that 1 or 2 lane. And this is MCPS. This is us versus the state. The state is the light blue, and we are the purple. So you can see about 40% in the 1 and 2 category. And so we have to make sure that we are really doing a great job in promoting and pushing teacher effectiveness. So that's another challenge that we have, and we are definitely working on that. But about 40% in the 1 and 2 category, and again, about 16.2% in the 4 or 5 category. The bulk are scoring where they should at a 3, which is satisfactory. But of course, we want to see more of our teachers scoring here. This is where we want to see more of our teachers, okay? And you can see that we lag behind the state in the number of level 5 and level 4 teachers. And that's something that we want to build upon, is more level 5 teachers. Now, by percentage, we have 33 level 5 teachers, and we employ a teaching force of about 1,000, maybe 991 teachers. So it's about 3% of your workforce. So, 3% of the workforce scored at the upper, at the most effective level this year. 9% of the tested teachers, okay? Make sure I understand that. 3% of the total teachers, 9% of those who test. Okay, there were 345 teachers who test, so about 9% of those who tested, but 3% of your total. So 33 would be about 3% of the 1,000. Y'all with me on that? 3%? Okay, I was saying that we had 33 that were level 5, and then 33 of the 1,000, or roughly around 1,000 that we have, were level 5. So out of our total teaching population, that's about 3%. Of those that were tested, it's 9%. 33 represents 9% of those who test. Not all of our teachers do test. Several do not have tested subjects. So that's what I'm saying. 3% of our overall population, 9% of our tested teacher population scored level 5. So moving forward, where are we now? Oh.
Are you saying we have 79 level 1 teachers? Is that what I'm saying?
Yes. Wait a minute, let me get that number. What was that? Yes. That were tested, yes, mm-hmm. And again, I want to be sure that I send the correct message. The test is a one-day snapshot. A person can have a bad year. We have many effective, great teachers, but it's just a snapshot. But performance is something that we do address. When I started this position, this is going in year 3. Many of you all have been on the board for a while. You've seen this document. This was a 3-year plan that we wrote. I like to write plans differently. Some people look at this and say, oh, this doesn't look like a plan. In my humble opinion, a plan is a what and a how, okay? So we give you the what. Year 1 was what we call structure to instruction, which was creating a sense of urgency around academic improvement, and it was a launch year. And then, of course, at the bottom, we tell you how, things that we're going to work on, okay? And then we measured whether or not we were doing those things with the thing that I call a P5 report, and then we documented everything that we were doing in order to meet the how. Last year, it was called Operation Ameliorate. The word ameliorate means to improve, and we focused heavily on human capital development. And that is intensifying the focus on pedagogy and content knowledge for teachers and enhancing instructional expertise for principals and assistant principals. And then these things were the things that we did as the how, okay? This is where we are now, year 3, accelerate. And I can't think of a theme that is more pertinent to where we are right now. In order for us to catch the state, which is what you've asked us to do, we have to put the pedal to the metal, and we really have to go. Because, again, as I mentioned earlier, as the state is improving and we're improving, then it's really, there's no change in relative position if they improve and we improve a little bit. So we really want to start to catch up. And so we have some practices in place that we think are gonna help us catch up. We do have a full plan, and we've had this plan for a while. Can I get some assistance? Brother Penner, will you help me out again?
Dr. Woodard, do you have this digitally? We don't have that in here, right?
I can send all this to you. Yes, ma'am, I'll send this to you.
'Cause we can't read this at all.
Okay, yes, ma'am,
Okay.
I'll send you guys the PowerPoint and, all the documents. Yes,
All right,
ma'am.
thank
Sorry
you.
about that. I will have everything for you this evening. And this document, you guys have this. I sent this out to everybody last year. You should have that one. But, I won't go through this full plan. It is getting late, and, it's a long night. It's getting late. This is our second meeting tonight. But I'll just kinda hit the highlights. The highlights are real simple. It's about accelerating, more progress and better outcomes. And so by definition, the word accelerate means to move faster, but there was one definition that really caught my eye when I was thinking about why we need to accelerate, and that definition is to make progress more rapidly than usual. We're not after the standard 5%, 4% kind of gains that we got this year, and we're pleased with that. It is better. It's progress. You know, we're out to make double-digit, really strong gains so that we can begin to catch the state, and that's what we have to do in order to meet the goal that you all set in the strategic plan. So we know what we have to do, and we're getting after it. This plan fully outlines what we're gonna do, but just to be brief, we're aligning our work in 3 distinct areas. 1, enhancing pedagogy and practice. 2, capacity building and teacher leadership, and looking at instructional leadership. And then 3, making forward progress, things that we're doing to propel the district forward. And so, again, the night is getting long. I won't go through this. This is a 21-page document. This would be great for you if you have insomnia and need something to read to go to sleep, but I won't belabor the point. I know there are questions, and so I'll be happy to take some questions at this time.
All right. And we'll, if there anyone in the audience would like to ask questions as well, but I'll take board questions first. Anyone? Oh, wow. Mr. Beaver?
Thank you, ma'am. Well, I guess I might as well start this off, Dr. Woodard. With the difference that you seen 3 years ago versus this year, what kind of improvement have we made in the state rankings?
I'll be honest with you, Mr. Beaver. We are maybe up a little bit, not very much. I mean, our ranking has not moved very much. I'll be honest with you. You're right. It has not improved significantly.
Okay, what do you think the problem is that we haven't, if we went negative instead of positive?
I think, as I mentioned earlier, I want to be very respectful to this. We're trying, as a district, we're trying to keep up with the Joneses, and it's pretty hard. Other districts are 1-to-1. Other districts have, have bought in curriculum. Other districts are purchasing books. You know, our BEP, the BEP for our county for textbooks is somewhere around $76 per child. We spend a little less than that, somewhere around, much less than that. We spend about $25.83, almost $26 per child. And so if you multiply the $76 per child that we're supposed to spend times our enrollment here, it comes out to almost $1 million annually that we should be spending on textbooks and curriculum materials to support academic improvement. Without having those materials, it is difficult to take these rigorous assessments and then try to keep up with where the state is going because the new materials are aligned to the state standards, and it's hard. So we're using older materials, we're using outdated materials, and we're trying to keep up with the Joneses, and we're just not there yet. So we are improvement, but we're not there yet. And so I'd like to see us get there. Respectfully, I think the last 2-3 years I've come before you guys and asked for a greater amount, but I understand we had some budget constraints, and I'm respectful, and I'm thankful for what you gave us. This year is the first year we were able to provide resources for everyone K-8. So we have resources in ELA and math for everybody K-8 this year. So I think we're going to see some real good progress with that.
So you're saying the budget is the reason that we hadn't made any progress?
I'm saying the budget is a significant factor, yes.
Okay, all right. So in 2015, do you know what our budget was at that time?
I was not in the district at that time, so I do not know.
Okay, it was approximately $87 million.
Okay?
This last year, what we just finished up was $103 million. And in 2015, we were ranked 87th in the state. This year, we're 121st in the state. So, what's caused that?
And again, I would say not having adequate resources. We need the resources. I'm just being honest with you. I don't know how we can compete without having the resources.
Okay.
I think our teachers, the growth, we demonstrate more growth if we have the resources, and our achievement would also go up if we had the adequate resources. Now, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Where do you see your responsibility as a board member in that?
It's our job to, like you say, to get the money. And we have got quite a improvement in the budget in the last 4 years. Everything Dr. Marzak has asked for up until last year, he's got it. And last year, you know, he kindly went overboard, and we didn't have a whole lot to negotiate with, so we had to take what the county gave us. But up until that point, whatever Dr. Marzak asked for, he's got it. I mean, you know, but I was just wondering, you know, if it's if it's a budget problem, why we have went backwards instead of forward, because we've had $16 million increase in our budget in the last 4 years.
Can't speak to that.
I can speak to that.
Okay.
Ms. Kinzer?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so, Mr. Beebe, if you go back to the August of 2018, a lot of the problems that we occurred with our budget, remember, we're dealing with increases to benefits and insurance. And so that created a deficit in our budget that caused some of those unfortunate incidents that needed to happen almost over a year ago. But if you'll remember, over the last couple of years, what we've done is we've made investments in the keys to college and career readiness. So a lot of those investments were things that individual schools were specifically asking for in order to push true academics with their students, not necessarily in order to help more students bubble and answer correctly on a standardized test. And as a result of those investments that the board has made over the 3 or 4 years with regards to the keys of college and career readiness, you can see what is happening with regards to true reading, true mathematics as measured by teachers, with what's happening with regards to industry certifications and advanced placement courses, dual enrollment courses, the growth that we made with students becoming financially literate, the growth of the number of students that are being successful in the ACT. Because one of the things that I want to remind this board about is that we are talking about an assessment that is taken on one day and one point of the year, and it's one test. Whereas our elementary literacy is our students and teachers working together over the course of 180 days. In financial literacy, it's our teachers and our students working together over the course of 180 days. And we have a chance along the line to formatively assess where they are, adjust our instruction, and grow. We don't have that opportunity with regards to the standardized test. We don't have a formative assessment platform that is aligned to the summative assessment, the test at the end of the year, which tells us the growth that our children and our students need to make. We had something along those lines with Power School assessment, but unfortunately we lost that due to the increases in benefits and insurance, which impacted our budget for last year. So we are making very good growth with regards to our keys in college and career readiness that our community wanted us to focus on. Where we're struggling is on the standardized test that is given one day at one point in the year, which, as we know, has increased in rigor over the last 4 to 5 years, which has also faced numerous failures over the last 2 to 3 years. We know that the board has tasked in the strategic plan with ensuring that by 2023, we will be in the top 10% of districts with regards to reading, language arts, and mathematics. And we were really eager to see what happened this year with an assessment that was actually successful, with an assessment that had no bugs and no issues, and we saw growth with regards to our students' performance and our teachers working with our students. However, we still have 4 more years to go in order to get to where the board has tasked us with getting. Because remember, the strategic plan has only been in place for 1.5 years. So we're one of the reasons why Dr. Wonder's excited, and I'm excited about what we've seen, and when we met with Chair Kinzer individually, is we saw growth in our students. And we, as you noticed with some of those bars, we have very little to catch up with the state on. This year, we have math curriculum, K-8, in place on the first day of school. You'll remember that last year we didn't get that until January. We also have curriculum in place, K-8, with regards to literacy. So we're really excited about that in day 1 this year, literacy curriculum is in place, and teachers are working with students starting on day 1. So as we continue to do that year after year after year, and then hopefully the state keeps the assessment as it is, we should see continuous growth over the next 3 to 4 years.
Okay, so, if you take and compare Williamson County, Lawrence County, Dallas County, Hickman County, and Marshall County, which are all the counties that touch Murray County, why are we at the bottom? Because they are, confronted with the same problems we are with this state testing.
And what I can tell you is we're not at the bottom. In multiple areas, sometimes we're in the lower quartile, sometimes we're in the upper quartile. Because remember, we have to look at multiple areas with regards to the standardized assessment. For example, Math 3, Math 4, Math 5, ELA 3, ELA 4, ELA 5. In some of those areas, we actually outperform some of our counterparts. Now, I'm not going to put us up against Williamson County with 9% free and reduced lunch and the average annual income of a person at $100,000. I'm not going to put us up against Williamson County because that's not even apples to oranges. That's apples to filet mignon.
Yeah, but if you look, you know, we didn't even beat the state out on any of our numbers.
With regard, you know, yes, you're exactly right. We had some areas of concern with regards to where everybody else in the state is performing. You're exactly right. And but what we saw this year was growth, which means that we had the ability, and our principals and teachers working hard with the resources we had the ability to move the needle, and we moved it. Now we just need to keep that growth moving forward by supporting them, by supporting our principals and teachers and telling them you're doing a good job, you're on the right path, you're making good direction, keep it up, we're here to help you. Now with regards to Mr. Laconin talking about having money to spend, this is our opportunity to really invest in our teachers and our principals with regards to how we want to support them to move the needle even further this year, next year, and the year after.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome, sir.
Any board members? Mr. Sims?
Going to the subgroup numbers, what, I guess, can you speak to what you think the problem versus what the solution's gonna be on the subgroup numbers, because they're quite a bit lower. Can you just speak to that?
There could be a number of root causes why specific subgroups are not performing well. You know, this model's doing what it's designed to do, and it's designed to show you where you have underserved populations and where those gaps are. In our ATSI, TSI, which stands for Targeted Support Intervention Schools, those schools will have an opportunity to select a whole school reform model through a grant. They can apply for a grant that will help them specifically target the population of students that fall into that category. And really, it's something that we have told all of our schools. I preached this all last year, that this was the year that the focus determination would come out, and that they were going to really look at focus groups this year. And we've all been really fighting to make sure that all students improve. You know, the key is really all students improving. But once you have isolated groups that are not performing. We have to identify those specific students and then put in strategies to help those kids bridge the gap. Specifically more time on task. Sometimes it could be double dipping, if even triple dipping those kids to give them more access to the learning so they can improve. But the good thing is that some of these schools can come out of this designation after 1 year. The ones that are ATSI will take a little more work, but the others can come out of that designation after 1 year.
Is there anybody out here that would like to ask a question or anything? Here's your opportunity. Come up to the mic.
Spring Hill,
I state your name.
Katie Glader, 1033 Keeneland Drive in Spring, okay. Spring Hill Middle had math books on day one. So they got there because we had to buy the workbooks, the Ready workbook, yeah.
Ready math.
Yeah. And so they had those on day one, so they had those all year, and then come January, when the rest of the school district got those, they were like, hey, can we get our money for our books that we already bought? But they had those from day one to go through. So wanting to, I guess, have everybody be aware of that. For those math scores, they can't rely on going, well, they got them in January. They had them on day one. Thanks.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Oh, come on.
Well, we have the Ready Math too, so that curriculum, so if you look at that curriculum, we got it that year, but the rigor for that curriculum is aligned with our 10 Ready. And so if you look at the rigor compared to what the kids used to have, you're gonna see a different score. But I think our scores will be much better this year because we were going in that phase too, that the kids had to get used to that curriculum because it's much more rigorous than the curriculum that they had in the past. So historically, when you get a new curriculum like that, and it is Tennessee, 10 Ready aligned, that you're gonna see a different score.
Yeah, and my student might have been used to it because we went from Franklin Special to Springfield Middle, which did the Ready Math there.
Anyone else? Okay, then excuse me, go ahead, Mr. Sanders.
Dr. Woodard, how long or when exactly do y'all receive the scores from the state? Do you know about the time frame that you receive those?
I think it's late July. Somewhere around, I think, the 27th of July that came in this year. And then they embargo those from the 27th of July, and they embargo them until August 13th. During the embargo time, that's also the time for appeals. So districts can appeal what they see and submit appeals, and so those numbers could change. The only one that we saw change this year was U.S. history. We were at about 25% in U.S. history. The cut score changed, and that knocked us down to about what we were last year. We broke even there.
So up until that time, you don't have any, no hints, no anything to try to plan for the upcoming year with?
We have no knowledge of those scores until we get them back. That's been one of the frustrations that we've had, is that the data comes back so late that we can't make real decisions. Students will finish testing in early May. We ship those off to the state, and then we don't get them back until, almost the start of school. So we're hoping that this year will be we're going back to pencil and paper this year. So that's what's going to happen this year. Governor Lee decided to get that done, so it's back to pencil and paper this year. And so typically when there's pencil and paper tests, they come back a little faster. But the online assessments, we've seen the last 2 years that it's been later and later. So part of that is also these tests have a human scored part. It's constructive response. There's some items that kids can bubble in, and other parts they write, and someone has to score those, which delays the time. But this year will be back to pencil and paper, so it should be interesting.
Anyone else? Ms. Hopkins? Are you
I just wanted to say thank you to the teachers and the principals for, your hard work that you've done thus far. But what I saw was, and what I hear is, about the progress. I feel hopeful. I feel hopeful, and I feel, good that, as we've shown, different improvements. That's great. But as Doug Laconin had told us, as he's come on board and cleared up some things, that, what Dr. Woodard said, the ELA resources for 2020, the adoption year, and the teacher raises. If we can get that prioritized, when we make our planning and do what we need to do, that could be a huge, or maybe a huge step in moving forward. Because, you can tell somebody all day that they're doing a great job and, all that, but they really need something tangible. I said before, and it's true, everybody knows it, money talks. And so, just getting that priority so we can show that we appreciate, our teachers and staff, and like you said, the support staff and things like that. Also, when we get the corrections done, like you said, for the thing, they thought it was 15,000 and it was really 13. And then also the graduation, the rate, the errors. When we get those errors corrected, when will we know? And what would that mean once it's corrected? Will our score change or?
That's what we're hoping for. We're hoping that the state will go back and award us the points that we deserve. That's what we're fighting for at this time. I'd like to show y'all an example of what I'm talking about so you can see what I mean. Here's an example of, I can make this a little bit bigger. Here's an example of what I'm talking about. I have blacked out the last name of the students just to protect, FERPA, for FERPA rights. But you can see the number of duplicates that are in here. You can see one kid from Columbia Central, Matthew Blank, is listed as both an 11th grader and a 12th grader. That's an error. And you can see this person's chronic absenteeism is about 33%. And you see it's 33% twice. So that means that kid counted twice. We found 151 errors like that where students were counted twice or multiple times. We found 539 errors where kids who were not here 50% of the time were counted in a chronic absenteeism. And that will be a violation of the accountability protocol for states. So we've submitted this to them. It's just a matter of whether or not they will say yay or nay. That's where we don't have the power. We don't have the power to bend the state, but we're asking for a fair shot at being looked at and reflected accurately. But if we get the points for this and for our grad rate, I think that, we're competitive, and I think that we move into a different status, a different category, pending on this. But again, I'll be transparent and frank. I'd like to see us be there, regardless, where we didn't need to depend on this. But we're moving in that direction. But I just wanted to show you what we're talking about. These are the kinds of errors that we find in the data file that we get back from the state.
Ms. Parker?
On the chronic absenteeism, were there test scores associated with those kids twice as well, or?
So chronic absenteeism doesn't factor into assessment. It just factors into accountability. What they do is they divide the number of, what they do is they take a kid's, they look at every student who misses 10% or more of school, which would be 18 days. So if a kid misses 18 days of school, they're chronically absent. They take that percentage that you've missed, and then they divide it by the number of instruction days that they should have, which would be, I think it's, the number is 169, and that's how they get that percentage. And then they add up your total percentage of kids who are chronically absent, and then that's divided by your total enrollment. The percent of kids who are chronically absent divided by your enrollment times 100, and that gives you a number. And that's how our number came out to be about 15% or so.
Right. What I'm trying to make sure of is that is just with regards to accountability. It has nothing to do with achievement.
Correct.
So if we actually get an increase, we're going to get an increase not because of our achievement scores, but because we had errors and more kids, basically, that were not chronically absent, which is a good thing.
Right.
But then that means we had more kids in seats, so what were we doing with them?
So we get the bonus, so we get the points here, right? So where it says chronically absent, it comes out in our accountability. So we'll get points in the, it could raise our absolute performance, which is a 2. That could go to a 3 or 4.
Right.
And then our value add, because it means that there would have been a reduction from the previous year. That could be any number of 1, 2, 3, 4, but it would be bonus points. So then when you add those two columns and divide it by 2, it will give us more points in the overall score column, which raises the achievement determination at the bottom, which then stacks us, it moves our rank up. Mr. Beavers, you mentioned that, that's gonna move our rank up amongst other districts, just depending on where they score. And that's where the state comes in, they have all of that. I don't know how that, I don't know what the ranks are, I just don't know how that all works out, but those points would, definitely help us.
But it has nothing to do with what the students did bubbling in a test, essentially.
If that's what you're asking,
Yes.
that's correct.
Okay.
I was talking about this will improve our district
I
designation.
understand, but I'm
Yes,
saying
ma'am.
that bump will only be because we had more kids in the seats,
Correct.
essentially,
Correct,
counted and accounted for properly.
correct.
But it has nothing to do with whether or
With what
not
they-
they're
what they
proficient
know
in
and they can
math
do.
or English.
That's correct.
They
Correct.
could be a warm body, essentially.
That's correct.
So, I guess, I just wanna say, I've been on this board for 5 years, and, hearing that we have curriculum issues, hearing that we have textbook issues, that's not new to me. It's really not. I know that we have those, but we just voted as a board tonight to allocate an additional $45,000 to a position. We talked about, another position that's in the budget, but but when we start talking about textbooks, we need more people. So I'm just trying to understand, what direction do you want us to go? Because when it comes from central office, I feel like a lot of times the push is for personnel, and I know personnel is important, but I'll be honest with you, when we cut $500,000 from textbooks this year, I feel like that was on the backs of our students. I feel like that was basically like saying, hey, teachers, we want you to do your job, but we're not going to give you the tools you need to do it. And you pretty much said that they're lacking some of the tools that they need to do this, to move these kids along. I just feel like we as a board need to figure out where the direction is, and central office needs to be consistent in their message.
Can I push you on that
You are
respectfully?
welcome to push back on me on that.
Respectfully, I wanna
I appreciate it.
respectfully, Ms. Park, I wanna push you on that just a little bit, okay? The board has one employee, that's Dr. Chris Marzak, okay? He, along with you guys, help establish, where this district is going. And you tell the superintendent, hey, this is what we prioritize, this is what we put in our plan, and this is what we want you to do. And if he goes off the rails, no disrespect, Dr. Marzak, but if he goes off the rails, you say, hey, wait a minute, we're not gonna approve a budget that does not include these things. And I'm just being honest, and for years, we've approved budgets that did not include those particular items that would support improved academics, okay? That's where the chip on my shoulder comes from. I'm giving you the best production I can give you with what I have to work with. I'm giving you the best production I can give you with what I have. And yet, we're being told continually, it's not enough, it's not enough. We're not at a point where we can keep up with other districts just yet, we're not. But I believe we've got the right personnel in place, the right team in place, and we're gonna get there. But it's gonna take us deciding to invest in the resources. Like I mentioned, we're several adoptions behind.
Right.
So our kids just don't have the resources. I wanna mention to you guys, I'm also a parent, okay? I have 2 sons in this district, both of my boys. I've got an 8th grader, I've got a 5th grader. My kids have not brought a book home. They don't have books to bring home. If anything, they do dittos. I've never complained. I understand where we are as a district. I don't go out and badmouth Murray County or talk to my friends in Rutherford and Wilson and other counties, because I believe in what we're doing here. I believe it. And I moved here. I didn't have to move here, okay, because I'm not under contract with you all. But I moved here because I said, if I'm going to be in this position, I want to show my investment, right? Moved my wife out of a house that she loved, had been there 11 years, and we moved here because we're vested and my kids are in this system. So I walk my talk, okay? My kids are in the same condition as everybody else. They don't have the books either, yet we just fight through it. We try to find supplemental materials. I try to pull what I can, to help with homework. God knows I have not. I got one in Algebra 1 this year as an 8th grader. I do the best we can.
I mean, Dr. Woodard, though, I appreciate what you're saying, but I feel like this is what the public needs to hear. This is what this board needs to hear. I mean, you have a doctorate. I assume you know how to do algebra pretty well. Pretty well. I know, we all need refreshers on it. We all need refreshers, and that's where a textbook can come in handy. I mean, I've had people tell me that, hey, when I don't know how they teach math anymore. We've got Common Core, we got this. I just know my math facts, but I may need a refresher on how to do algebra 1, 2, geometry, whatever. But our parents can't even be involved. The ones that have the ability, I mean, is the expectation then for our parents to be pulling resources? Like, I mean, you obviously have an education background, so you probably know where to go and pull resources. But I feel like that's a problem. If we've got our teachers doing that, we got our parents doing that.
Right.
Like, where is the focus on that aspect of it? I'm a parent too,
Right.
and I'm frustrated by that. And I talk to other parents that are frustrated when their kids don't bring home textbooks. So I'm just saying, I know it's not a new problem. I know you didn't create this problem. I'm not blaming anybody. I feel like our teachers do a great job with what they're given. I'm just saying
Right.
they need to be given more.
Right.
But we need to figure out a way to do that. We can't have all the bells and whistles. We can't. The pot is only so big, and the pot's only going to grow so big. So it's incumbent upon management to figure out how to get the biggest bang for your buck, I feel like. And I'm happy to support y'all in whatever decisions y'all make on that. But when we go down a path and then we run out of money and then we have to scrap things because we really just didn't plan it all out, that's a problem too. And so I feel like it's really important that we as a system have a plan that we're following, but also understand there are budgetary constraints, and we got to work with those. But we have to prioritize what we need to prioritize. And I hear you saying curriculum, textbooks, resources, assessments. I'll go back to on the assessments. So we had Power School. I heard from teachers. Some teachers liked it. Some teachers didn't. I went to a TSBA conference, and they told me, somebody from the state said, there's a bank of test questions. I have no idea why your district is paying for Power School. That's what somebody at TSB, I see Dr. Marzak shaking his head, so I'm just going to say, that's what somebody told me that worked for the state. So I have no idea why she would tell me that if that's not true. I want y'all to have what you need, but we can't triage this. And that's what I feel like we're trying to do. And now I'll go back to, there were some questions about rigor, and when I look at math scores, particularly in middle school, 8th grade, less than 10%,
Correct.
meeting the standards. Algebra, about 11%.
11%.
I assume that those kids in those classes, they didn't all fail it. I mean, so, they all failed it?
How many of them got, high school credit for it?
Out of how many students?
How many kids?
Ma'am, excuse me, the board has to ask. Yeah.
No, that's okay. I appreciate the help on it. You've obviously been there and done that.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Ms. Parker.
Out of your Algebra 1 students, how many are actually getting high school credit? 12 out of how many total taking it? Okay. When you say 3 classes, do you mean like 20 kids in each class, or? Okay. So you're but grade-wise, I guess what I'm trying to get to is, what grades are these kids bringing home? Are they bringing home C's, D's, F's on tests, or are they bringing home A's and B's? Is it rigorous enough for them? Okay. Right. Right. But I thought y'all bought already, yourself, at Spring Hill Middle?
It's K-8.
It's not algebra.
Right, Math 3 through Math 8.
All right, let me just ask this other question, because I feel like this is another area where we have some accountability issues. I've had constituents that have contacted me about Algebra 1 classes where they did not have a teacher for an entire semester. And bless their hearts, I have no idea how anybody can get through as an 8th grader Algebra 1 in a semester. What's being done at central office, principal level, to make sure that you've got somebody in there that's able to teach this subject for high school credit, no less.
I will tackle that one, and then if there's a principal that would like to answer this one, you can come up to the podium. That's been a challenge for us. Personnel has been a challenge. If you lose a teacher, one of our schools lost a highly effective math teacher just to, this person decided to go to the business sector. And now these kids are stuck without a teacher. And at that late point of the year, you're not going to find anybody that has enough expertise to go and cover that. So then you're stuck with maybe putting an interim in the room, someone that doesn't have the content expertise. And so you're just trying to hodgepodge what you can. Other teachers pull together. You know, our teachers are so, I'm so thankful for them and what they do. They pull together and try to create enough work, and then they have to grade some of the work. I mean, it is a challenge. Principals really have a challenge with this. It's a challenge, and there's nobody out there. As I understand it, there's quite a math shortage across the state. They're really trying to find math teachers, and we had districts that were competing with us, paying bonuses to get math teachers, and some of our folks, you know, have left because of the bonuses. You know, we can't compete with districts that are giving $4,000 or $6,000 bonuses for certain positions to come. So it comes back to money once again.
Again, though, we've got to figure, I mean, we know that other people are doing this, so what are we doing to combat this? Like, we've got to come up with something. And I'm saying we, like, as a board, we as in central office, but like I said, the plans that come to us thus far don't include that type of stuff. It just hasn't. And so I recognize that we have an issue. You recognize that we have an issue. Let's find a solution to it. But when we're talking about $2.8 million sitting there, let's figure out how to do this right and not just what we want. Let's do what we need.
Ms. Hopkins. I think that's going to come from the moving forward. When Doug Lacone, and I really feel good about him, when I asked him that, I said, can you help us formulate goals so that what's priority and what we need is up front moving forward with it, you know, education-wise, academic-wise, for the teachers' incentives, all that. We got to start backwards to move forward. But nothing's gonna, you know, we gotta get in the pot and get it stirring. But that is the trajectory to let him help us, because it was unorganized. I'm new kid on the block, so you know, and I hear from you and people that's been on the board before. It had some shifts and cuts and all that thing. Okay, fine, it's done now. So we got to get to the point where we're thinking about the children, we're thinking about the teachers who serve the children, and get it where through our workshops, thank you, Miss Betty, that we're going to have our retreats. We need things like that so we can hash out these things, talk about these things, and get people on board that can help us move forward with what we need. That's the only way it's going to happen. We got to get there. The old is old. It's old. Oh, it's old. But the new is yet to be.
Mr. Moore.
All right. Mr. Wood, and I guess I'll preface my comments because I don't want it to be thinking like this is an anti-teacher comment, but I'll be honest, I'm concerned at how are we going to meet goals when realistically we've got what looks to me like a pretty high number of level 1 and level 2 teachers. And it seems like, and I understand you put that up against what Ms. Parker's talking about, that we already have a struggle keeping teachers, so I understand that's already an issue. So those things are they're kind of button heads. I get that. But realistically, I don't see how that's not part of the problem here. And I'd like to have some discussion about how do we address that. I know there's been some issues with state reporting, and we've talked about this several times. But I just feel like, you do the numbers on that, and some very raw numbers. You're looking at roughly 10% of our students are being impacted by just a level 1 teacher every year. Mm-hmm. And I start to look at what the numbers of what our percentages of success here are. And when you've got, again, I don't mean to be rude, but when you've got that many kids are being impacted by a level 1 teacher, that even the state reports and some of the other numbers you showed, they just don't have a very good impact. I don't see how we can move some of those kids ahead. And again, that's 10% of our student population is being impacted by one of those, just the level 1 teachers. I'm not talking about the level 2. I'll give some grace on that, but just the level 1 teachers. And I don't say that to be spiteful, but we have to recognize that that's a barrier we've got. And I don't have a solution for it. And as Ms. Parker said, I'd like to discuss how to address that, but I can't see how that we can not include that in our discussions of how do we address this and be moving that ahead. You know, my goal obviously would be to replace those level 1 teachers with level 5 teachers.
Right.
And make that happen. And I can't see how that wouldn't have a huge impact on our student bodies. And Dr. Marzak's waving furiously, so I think he wants to speak to that.
May I say something, because I know, Jennifer, she has such a positive statement to make during her MCA thing. Until we are able to offer a competitive salary, until we're able to compete with salary with the surrounding counties, you're not going to pull in those teachers that are going to be level 5 teachers. I think our teachers are doing the best job they can do under the circumstances with not enough support from this board financially, but we haven't had a lot of choices about this. But a huge part of the component has to be attracting and retaining the highly qualified teacher. And if it's not part of the conversation there in the textbook anywhere, because I want to tell you, when those doors close, it's a teacher in front of a class that's providing the education for these children. Administrators, you can line them up on the driveway because that's where learning takes place, in the classroom. What are the administrators supposed to do? You're supposed to make sure that teacher can have a classroom that's not disruptive, that they are able to teach, and they're safe. That's your job, my opinion, okay? But I don't think any conversation, yes, we need textbook, we need curriculum, across the county curriculum that matches in every school. I'm thrilled to see the middle school teachers collaborate on this, because that's what we need. But it can't, part of the conversation has to be, how do we attract and retain teachers? And where are we going to be in 2023 when you want those scores to be ready? Where are our teachers going to be on the salary scale? Because right now, in the 14 counties, we're at the bottom, absolute bottom.
Chair Kinzer, can I jump into that? Because I appreciate you bringing that up. I absolutely agree. And I'll be honest, as a person on this board who is generally one of the last to want to give raises or I'll tell you my struggle with that. When we're holding on to low-performing teachers, it is hard for me to want to give a raise across the board to that when we're not making the movements on that. That's the problem I have. If again, you switch that around where you get rid of those 79 level 1s and put the more 79 more level 5s in here, or 4s, or even 3s. I'm looking at a completely different. I'm with you, Ms. Kinzer, on that. But that's my struggle as a board member. I mean, I want to reward, but then again, we as a district, again, we're either holding on to them, or the other thing is we're not improving them or giving them those pathways to improvement. I don't know. But I do know that they're impacting more students than we need to have it impacted at those low-level teachers.
Dr. Marzak wants to speak, or he's waving.
Yes, thank you very
I'm not
much.
sure which.
Yeah, I mean, outstanding, excellent points by all of you, because this is a critical area that superintendents and the TDOE we've been talking about today is Austin Peay today presented some evidence about people entering into teacher education. 10 years ago, it was about 26% of those entering four-year university said they were interested in an education degree. As of 2018, that had dropped to 4.6% of basically college entrance surveys. So what we've been talking about a lot of here is we can no longer fire for success, which means that because we don't have a large number of teachers waiting in the wings to get jobs or to move into districts or move to other districts, when you let somebody go, that position may stay open longer than you want it to stay open, which means you have to fill it with a substitute teacher, or you have to dissolve a class because there is no longer a large number of people waiting in the wings for one person, two people, or three people to leave a job. So when you go to the three-year plan that Dr. Woodard has presented that we've been talking about, we're actually talking about this specific area in both sections 1, 2, and 3. So when we talk about enhancing pedagogy and practice, what we're talking about doing is developing our own to improve their own skill set to become better teachers in the classroom, which then creates a better academic program for our students. When we talk about building teacher leadership, what we're talking about is building the capacity of teachers to then mentor other teachers to grow their own craft, to make themselves master teachers. And then that in turn, along with section 2, increases the capacity in our schools. Because when teachers are able to be successful and principals are exhibiting instructional leadership and they're supporting their teachers and supporting their grade levels and their departments and creating a great culture, nobody wants to leave. And what happens is the engine of progress just continues to go down the track. And then because there is a culture of continuity and consistency, teachers improve. We cannot continue to turn over, and yet expect high results. One of the things that Ms. Kinzer and I were talking about a couple of weeks ago, we were having a conversation when somebody wanted to come in and talk to us about some of our scores. And one of the things that Ms. Kinzer made a point to reference is that exactly what she said a second ago is our salary scales rate as one of the lower bottoms in the state of Tennessee. It's also kind of interesting that our state assessment results ranked about there as well. Is there a correlation between our state summative assessment results and our teacher salary scales? I don't know. That would be tough to prove, but it does look pretty coincidental, especially when we're losing teachers to other districts that have more money, have bigger budgets, spend more per student, and thus consequently are able to offer salary bonuses and signing bonuses. And so when we move into section 3 of our 3-year plan with forward progress, it's about continuing to grow those that we have here in the district and then continuing to push them forward, and hopefully through building those rich culture environments where teachers are truly supportive, they don't want to leave our district, and then we move from 1s to 2s, 2s to 3s, 3s to 4s, and 4s to 5s. And we continue to make that progress moving forward.
I think we have a lot of work to do as a board, and we need to do the work together, and we're going to start the work on the 17th, and we may need to have more retreats or whatever. We also had talked about starting the budget process earlier, and one of the things that I am challenged myself to do, and I'm going to challenge these board members, and I'll be speaking to them, is giving them specific areas in which they can really delve into and report back to us so that they have, they can help with collaborating with central office and with staff and everything, and report that back to us. But that's something we'll talk about a little bit more. But I think that tonight was good. I see your light, Ms. Parker. I'm sorry I missed it a minute ago, because I'll go ahead and speak, and then I'm going to close this up.
Well, I just want to say, when we're talking about recruiting and retaining teachers, I think part of that is not just what we pay them, but how we pay them, and making sure that they get paid on time, making sure that their insurance is up to date and they're not getting letters saying, hey, you've been kicked off of your insurance, making sure that their retirement is paid on time. So I'm not getting emails from teachers saying, I still don't believe my TCRS, I need to talk to somebody about it. I got an email today from a teacher who says my sick leave is not matching up with what's in Skyward with what I had in May of last year. And obviously I didn't work in June, July. So how did I lose 100 hours of sick time? These are the kind of things that are constantly going on, and it wears on teachers. And so I recognize we talked about it, they're pulling resources. They're teaching classes that are potentially being combined because we don't have enough subs, or we don't have enough whatever to make a class. These are a lot of really big problems, but some of these are management problems, quite frankly. I mean, payments, sick leave, I can't fix that. Like, when I get these emails, I'm helpless. And I'm sure principals get these same questions from teachers, and there's no reason that they should have to take their planning period to go and try and call somebody down at central office to try to figure out why things aren't adding up, why 2 + 2 is not equaling 4. So I'm just going to encourage us to respect teachers, not just in what we pay them, but in how we treat them and in making sure that the benefits that they have accrued, that they have earned, that they are receiving, because they're not right now. And it really concerns me. When teachers are having to email the entire board, all of the commissioners, like, this is getting a little ridiculous. And this isn't the first time that this has happened. So, I know that's not your area, Dr. Woodard, so I know you're speaking more on the test scores, but I just want to say with regards to teachers, I think you have a very difficult job if some of those other things are not working in other areas of the building that you work in.
Dr. Marzak?
Yes, thank you very much, Ms. Parker. A very good point. And in all of those areas that have been turned over to us, we've been able to remedy those situations with individual staff members. But when people complain to the board, I need to get that information so that I can address it, and then I can report back to the board. I haven't received any emails from any board members about any staff members complaining in over, I would say it's probably in a month, and we were able to remedy that situation immediately. So I need that information. I need that information forwarded on so that we can meet with those staff members and help them understand and explain what's going on and what's happening.
I think the issue right now is their days that they've accumulated, Dr. Marzak. I think that there's a discrepancy there and across the, am I right?
Yes.
Jennifer is saying yes, and I think there needs to be an audit. I think there was days lost. There's not, back in the old days, we used to get a receipt and we can say this is the day we were absent, we had paperwork, we had something to go on. It's not that way anymore, and so there is some failing there, but that's a whole nother thing. I'm gonna close this out if there's no one else. And thank you, principals, for staying. Thank you for the work that you do. Please tell the teachers we appreciate what they do as well, and please let those kids know that we know they're doing the best they can, and all the negativity does not be around them, but yes, that they are just doing the best that they can, and we appreciate that. Have a good evening.
Good night, everybody.